because in the open and honest, it's like you're being an asshole or you're being a bitch or whatever. The
Yeah,
thing is,
depending on where you are, what's going on.
in the moment, it
That
could
can be
be
very
very open
honest.
and honest.
So, one of the foundations or pillars we like to call was open, honest communication. And we started this in our relationship,
Mhm.
and it kind of grew and evolved as we went through some meaty things.
Some meaty things.
But it was a good foundation
But it's how we
to,
started.
yeah, it's how we
And
started.
we mentioned this in a previous video. We didn't dive in too deep, so we wanted to dive into it a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah, we do.
And open, honest communication is a key aspect in my mind
Hmm.
that allows a relationship to actually grow and unfold. It also holds us, I would say, accountable in some ways to what we're up to.
Yes, it does. And to unlock pieces of us that may be invisible to us or that we want to hold on to, an identity
Hmm.
that we want to hold on to more. So with the foundation of open, honest communication, it allowed the freedom to say what needed to
Hmm.
be said and expressed in the moment.
And sometimes to a detriment,
Yeah.
which we'll get into down the road. But
Yeah.
there is an aspect of that too open and too honest or too direct maybe and honest is can also be hurtful and
Mhm.
harmful in certain moments. So there's that aspect of to be open and honest, and there's a gentleness as well that has to go a, a filter, but not a filter that has to kind of be there.
Yeah.
So you don't like tear each other apart
Yeah.
because in the open and honest, it's like you're being an asshole or you're being a bitch or whatever. The
Yeah,
thing is,
depending on where you are, what's going on.
in the moment, it
That
could
can be
be
very
very open
honest.
and honest. And it can feel that way.
Yeah,
And that can also harm.
yeah.
So there's a delicate balance in all of this.
Yeah, so we actually like saying that. What did it mean? So when we first came together, what did that mean for you? Open, honest communication.
I would say initially when it came up, it was more like to share everything about me, like to be as open and honest about who I was or who I thought I was,
Mhm.
which is the key, which always changes too. So that's another aspect of this is like, yes, in the moment, you may share openly and honestly that you believe you're this thing. And in a month from now, that may not be true.
Yeah, like in the I am, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I am this, I am that.
Yeah.
Yeah, statements.
Yeah.
And you may believe that to be like fixed in time, like it's
It may
totally
feel
who you are.
so much of who you are in that moment, and
Hmm.
you will communicate from that point of view. And at any point, that could change, especially if you are on a growth path.
Hmm. One of the things I noticed just as a personal reflection of that open, honest communication is in the stickiness or fixedness of who you think you are in any moment of time. Um, Coming into a new relationship, it was kind of a like a hey, you need to accept me because this is who I am at this point. And if
That's
that
kind of how
doesn't
we
work for
started.
you,
That's kind of how we
then
started.
yeah,
Yeah. So
then
that's a good,
right,
yeah.
yeah, then like you get to choose, does this work for you? And there were definitely some, I am statements that we would have had about ourselves
Hmm.
that we had that we felt were very locked in. Like, you need to accept me as I am and this thing, and I am this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And what we've learned is those fixed identities of who we said we weren't actually true in many cases.
Well,
Would you say?
in all cases, I would say
Yeah.
it's not true. It's not truly who we are,
Yeah.
and that's a from diving into very various texts and practices and all these things, then there's a new discovery of ourselves all the time
Mm,
until all the layers are peeled back and
mhm,
all that. So there's definitely going to be iterations of who we think we are throughout. And some may last longer than others. Like I would say, the initial ones that we came into the relationship with were stronger than anything that is now, per se.
mhm,
We don't hold the things as closely anymore.
mhm.
So then it's easier to reflect
Yeah,
now
yeah.
on different aspects of ourselves and how we share ourselves and all that aspect. But in the beginning, it was definitely strong. They were full on identities. And in that, that was the start. So then it was like, this is who I believe I am in this moment. Can you accept that?
Mhm.
And then along with that came our questions to like vet. Like, well, is this like great, you're this thing, or you believe you're this person that's this, and now who are you? Like, who are you at your truest form
Yeah.
in my eyes or in your eyes? So then we used questions to vet out the rest to see if the relationship would even have a chance.
What I discovered, so when I was in reflection of those questions that we asked one another, there was observation that some of those questions actually kind of tapped at those I am statements. And so one of many things that came out of those questions was actually curiosity of these I am statements, of these identities. And in the asking of these clever questions, which seriously, I just Googled a shit ton of questions. So, like, Google was my friend on unusual questions to ask one another. But what I found was a lot of these actually did poke at who we thought we were, who you thought you were.
Mhm.
And when I would ask, then I'm aware now, looking back, that it gave an opportunity to see how we could communicate if there was something that butt up against a belief system.
Mhm.
Like, to say it a different way was is if there was something that kind of contradicted an I am statement, or what we've said, or what we think, we've
Mhm.
portrayed
Mhm.
ourselves to each other. um, and there was a question that actually brought up a contradiction
Mhm.
to who we claimed we were, and we were able to then talk through it, to like be in that curiosity and be in that reflection, to kind of work it out in our own
Mhm. Mhm.
awareness and then with each other.
I think the awareness comes in to play through the conversations, and then again, it's like the seed planting, which we've talked about before,
Yeah,
is that it plants the initial seed that this may not really be who you think you are.
yeah. And so, and I can share from myself that, in some of those conversations, if I was saying when I would say something out loud, and I find this still an experience now, that I can say something out loud and I'll have now my own BS meter,
Mm,
my own bullshit meter that's like, whoa, I don't think that's necessarily true. And then to have freedom to say, okay, hang on. I actually take that back. I'm gonna bring that back to further reflect on.
mm,
And in our path together, that really raised something else that kind of came as a part of this open, honest communication and discovery and reflection and contemplation, and that we are not fixed in, like in these identities at all. And
yep.
right, and it became very
And
clear.
that can be a slippery slope
Hmm.
because not like allowing the not being fixed also can have what people would call like a chameleon type personality to transform into anything in any moment,
But isn't that kind of,
for good or bad. Well, yes,
yeah,
there has to be that allowance.
yeah,
This is the slippery slope that I'm
yeah.
sharing, is that yes, we want to allow each other to go through what we believe we need to go through to see ourselves as different identities or whatever to unravel. But then there's also the other side of, like we've chatted before, about gaslighting or manipulation or those type of things where now you could put on the new costume that now manipulates
So what
using
comes,
an identity.
yeah, I hear you. So then that kind of brings into the other piece, I guess, with our pillars or our foundation, because to me, there is intention. Intention is what's coming up for me,
Mm,
right? So in our pillars of, I would say, commitment to one another,
hmm.
and commitment to our own unified and personal growth,
Yeah.
I think that that brings in like intention, and we had intention
Yes.
to grow and expand together. And in that intention,
I think that's the beauty too of where these questions come in.
yeah,
Like we revisited the questions regularly,
yes, we did.
like every 3 months,
Yeah,
I think it was at the time,
yeah.
that we revisit questions. And it's not like we always knew the questions we were going to ask each other. It's
Hmm.
like it's like, oh, this is our date night to go through these questions.
Hmm.
And in that moment, we would grab the questions. So it's not like you even had a chance to prepare, say,
Hmm.
in that regard. So then I would say the most authentic answer would come out as open and honest as we could be in those moments.
With whatever your was coming up for you at that
Yeah,
moment,
that's what I
which
mean.
might
Yeah.
not necessarily always be the full truth of it either.
No,
In,
but it's in that moment. That's,
it's in the
yeah,
moment, but
yeah,
there could be more, I guess, is what,
yes.
if I thought about it more, because I'm definitely well, give me, if you really want like a whole realm of the whole thing, let me
Hmm.
ponder on that for a bit.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I'll just say what's coming up for right now, but it might only be like a micro of more.
Which is beautiful in a lot of ways, is like we actually want to prepare and plan to be able to share so much. But in that pondering, it's actually probably not what is true in the moment. Like the true in the moment answer is more authentic, I feel. In this moment, that's what's coming up for me is like you asking me a question, say, and me responding to it right now in this moment is very different than if you ask me the question and I go sit and think about it and write about it and then give you a response. It allows me to like calculate what I'm sharing, where
Mm,
in the moment, it's like actually just what comes out.
hmm.
It's like what's there, and like you can still obviously control what's coming out of your face,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
but there is something to be said of that in the moment happening
Yes, agreed.
and what's being shared out
Yeah,
to be the most authentic truth in that moment
yes,
rather than planning.
yes. I find the planning is the aspect of expanding on certain ideas or thoughts or
Mhm.
whatever, right? Because,
Yeah, I totally hear you. I totally get
yeah,
what you're
yeah, yeah,
saying.
yeah.
And I'm just in this, it just came up in this moment. I've actually never processed that
Yeah, I
part of
know.
it. And it's just coming up in this moment of like, well, it's way more authentic actually to come out of me naturally
Yes.
when the question's being asked than me actually go reflect on it and then come up with an answer or my reflection around
Like a perfectly curated
what I believe that
response
I
that,
am or what you
yeah,
know what I
yeah, yeah.
mean? Like it's like in the moment,
I hear you.
the initial like
Hmm.
spark that spews out of you
Hmm.
is where you're at. And that's actually hard to come by.
Yeah.
Like it's to remember that. I don't like I this
Where
is a
it's
new
alive in
awareness.
you.
It's a new awareness right now
Oh, that's awesome. That's kind of how we work though,
in
too.
the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we like having these conversations.
Yeah.
It's like this is what happens
Yeah.
as we get a new awareness and
Hmm.
anyways,
Well, and okay, so in that, I like to always like, okay, so where were we? Let's bring it back to
intention
intention.
is
Yeah.
where you were at.
Yeah, intention. So, and then that was leapfrogging off of, well, careful, because, open,
Yeah.
honest communication can be really slippery, and,
Mhm.
these identities and da da da
Yes.
da.
Yeah.
Yeah, could be really slippery, and
So in the intention of growing together as a
mhm,
relationship, you're sharing that it's like our intention is to actually grow together, not to be
mhm.
slippery or
Yeah,
manipulative.
yeah,
And there may be moments of that
yeah,
still, but that's not the intention. The
yes,
intention is to actually reflect and look at ourselves
yeah,
and share what's coming up from our hearts,
that's right.
which is the
Yeah,
honesty of it all.
yeah, yeah.
So I hear you, what you're counteracting with the slipperiness of
Totally,
what this
totally.
could look like or could
And
be in
what
some
comes in my
relationships.
mind in this is like, well, what if you're dating a psychopath, and, and this person actually does have ill intentions? And it's like, okay, that's a different conversation.
Do you mind sharing a bit about your experience with me,
Oh, yeah.
with your daughter?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so here's a funny situation that happened. So I used to work for a cannabis company, and part of this was like
You got a
brought in
sample.
they brought in a sample and it was like this new vape pen or whatever. And I'm a very low dose kind of gal. And I was told that it was a really low dose and just keep hauling until this light went off. Well, my God, I had to leave work because I was totally properly stoned.
And you had a date planned with your daughter.
And I had a date planned with my daughter. We were going to a thrift store and shopping. And so we left. And this moment came while I was driving with my daughter.
She was driving, I hope.
She was driving. I was not driving, and she didn't smoke anything. So she was nice and sober, all proper. All proper it was. But she was taking her mama away from work,
Yes.
her stone mama.
You're going on your date to shop.
And so she was driving, and I had a moment of reflecting on our very new relationship. And at the time, everything was beautiful, and like it was like the utopian relationship that I always knew was possible. And I was just in such gratitude and love and joy. And in one little blip, bloop, everything turned upside down in my brain, legit upside down. And so everything that was pure bliss was actually in a context of manipulation and
Mhm.
like that you actually were not the person you were saying you were. Like that was the foundation of it. And it just went all upside down. And I think I sat in this moment for like, it was such a
Well, you're on cannabis, so it probably felt like an eternity.
eternity. Like it was such a download of information
Uh,
of like, oh my God, I just went like jump frogged from all these different things that you've said.
yeah.
And I was like, but what if he's lying to me? What if this whole time he's been lying to me? And it rattled me. Like it rattled me. And
Mhm.
I felt it in my body. So we're definitely going to be in our conversations talking about our body
Mhm.
presence because my
Anyway.
body became a meter of truth and honesty.
Mhm.
Anyway, I digress, but I just want to say that. And so anyway, this frequency, I could feel this deception frequency in my body. And it was so heavy and so dense, and it took me. And I know it was only micro moments. I know it wasn't very long, but everything was upside down.
Mm.
And I had an epiphany in that moment of realizing that, oh, that's how powerful all of this is. I can choose a reality of everything's deception and you're manipulating
Yep.
me and you're lying to me, or I can choose the perception that I was currently living in, which was actually this was everything that I had dreamed of in terms of the possibility of a relationship and your love for me and our expansion for growth, and it's just a matter of choice. And in that moment I chose, it's like choose your own adventure, I chose the path of the bliss.
Mhm.
And then bloop, everything disappeared. And I was back to driving in the car, stoned with my daughter, and in this reality
Yeah.
that I chose to be with you.
Mhm.
And it was magical.
And then had to share it with me. Well, didn't have to, but she chose to share it with me.
Yeah, I
Mm.
chose
Yeah.
to share it with
To
you. I was
share
like,
this
holy
blip of
shit.
this other person that I could be and all this stuff. And it's like, what the fuck? Holy shit. And it is a choosing,
It's a choosing.
and there's beauty and caution
Mm,
because there is a possibility that I could have been that.
yeah.
And you never
Uh,
really know
yeah.
until you're into the relationship for a certain period of time.
I
And
feel
there's
like I
still a
could have
choosing.
created you that way. So if I had chosen
Yes,
you
but there's
were
also the fact
deceptive
that
and
I could have been that
manipulative,
way because
you
it
could
was,
have.
you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes, you could create me that way. And that's the slipperiness of the mind
Yes.
and the
So I
possibility
guess
of,
there could have been like three different ways I
like,
could
we
have.
could be in the most perfect relationship and our mind could tell us that this isn't, this person's fucked up. And we could stay there and end the relationship and then realize 20 years down the road that shit, that was me.
Yeah.
That
It
wasn't
was
them at
me
all.
all along.
That was totally me. And vice versa.
Hmm.
We could stay in the relationship and the person could be manipulative and all the things and damaging and like, and then that's a whole nother mess.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but I really appreciate that in the storytelling of all this,
Mm-hmm.
and the truth of communication, and then being able to share ourselves. Because again, the communication, like I could say I'm being open and honest, but it still has to land with you to believe me,
Yeah.
right? And in any moment, it could come
It
up.
could flip.
That's not true.
Yeah.
And now there's a situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And luckily, you came out of it and realized that that wasn't the case, or you
Hmm.
didn't believe that to be the
I didn't
case.
choose that to be the
You didn't
case.
choose that to be the
Yeah.
case. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't
And
choose
then,
that to be the case out of my own awareness and my own truth meter of my
yeah,
body
yeah.
and what I was, what I was like. It comes with discernment, right? And common sense. It's not like just going blindly and don't fucking listen to this video and be like, she said. It's like you got to walk in your own fucking truth.
Yeah,
So,
and that's what I was trying to get at with that. The person could be manipulative
mhm,
or not, and you don't really know, and you really have to trust your own inner guidance.
yeah.
And pretty much everything we're talking about in all our videos is that inner guidance. And it's like you have to learn to listen to that, slow your life down enough that you can be with that inner guidance that's talking to you all the time. And most of us, or I wasn't aware of it for a long time. And it took a long time to pull all the layers off to listen to it,
Hmm.
to be okay with it, even talking to me. And that's what guides us to the things where all the magic happens. Truly, like in our life now, it's like I couldn't plan any of this shit.
Oh, God,
There's
no.
no way I could make this life work in my mind and be like, oh, this is exactly what we're gonna do.
It's funny you say that because a lot of this when we first met is exactly what we said we were going to do.
It was talked about a simple life, and yeah, but not like I mean, like down to the details of
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
everything.
Yeah,
Anyways,
fair.
it's another conversation.
That's another conversation. The
This one's
conversation.
about communication, so
Communication.
yeah.
Yeah. So intention is a big thing behind it.
Mm.
And so we trusted each other's intentions, which was that we're like the root of everything. We mean no harm to one another as well. So there's kind of the unsaid foundation. One of them was like, I don't mean you any harm. It may feel harmful. I may do things that harm you, but I don't mean it. I don't
It's
intend
interesting because in the
for the
perspective I
harm.
would say where we're at now,
Hmm.
it's you can't cause me harm.
Oh, fair. Expand on that.
You know what I mean? Like so then there's this aspect of realizing that I cause my own suffering and I cause anything that's going on inside me. Now, you could harm me physically. You could hit me with a chair or a frying pan or something silly like that. That's different.
Hmm.
But if your words cause me harm, it's my own thing. So if you're sharing something, we had an instance where um, you shared something about me that I didn't think was me.
Hmm.
I thought it was an old part of me that you were poking at unintentionally. I feel like at the time, in that, in the moment, you felt that I was hiding,
Hmm.
I think is what it was.
Hmm.
And in this new moment of like,
Hmm.
no, that was an old me that would hide that. That's not me now. And that felt harmful to me, but it was because I identified with this new person. And the truth is that we can be anything. And it doesn't mean we are, but it's like the capability of a human being is to be anything. So you could be the thing somebody's accusing you of and you're not aware.
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
And maybe you're not. So there's always discernment in
Yeah.
all of this and our own reflections.